Welcome to Wake Up. I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome two people who my viewers have constantly said you have to bring on the show. And I'm delighted to have them here with me today. It is Dom and Chris from the Sheep Farm. Yay! Welcome, guys.
Hi, Sonia.
I don't know if we're worth that introduction, do you, Chris?
Oh, no, you are.
I am. I'm not sure about you.
You both are. And one of the things that my viewers often say to me is I like to do deep dives. Well, clearly both of you do as well. And because I think it's absolutely important to understand the ancestry and the lineage of these people who are making these massive decisions on our behalf. And so ostensibly we've come together today because it's to do with Chris's book, which is actually based on your
Dom's book. Sonia.
See, there you go. Look at that.
I'll take it. I'll take that. It's fine.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Straight off the bat. Right.
I did the cover for it.
And you did a brilliant cover for it, right? Here we go. Let's just bring that in a second. That's your cover, right? You are the artist. Presumably you are the illustrator, Chris. Dom is the writer. What a talented family.
Yeah.
Comes together nicely.
Yeah.
So Traitors, brilliant book, Dom. And it does exactly what it says on the packet. And that is, do you want to know who these people are, what they've been deciding on our behalf? And so your book is based on the podcast that you actually started in 2020. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. We started looking into, or I started researching, as it says, the pandemic politicians, which we started with Matt Hancock. The lovely chap, Matt Hancock, the SS Commandant, Matt Hancock. And so we went from him to Whitty to Johnson, did Blair's early years, which we found very interesting, didn't we, Chris? Blair's early years. The irony is, just before we start off camera, we were talking about we were from mixed race background, and we met with one of our family members in from Chicago last week, who we'd never met before. Our mother was born to a US black US airman during World War II, and
GI baby.
So he had to go back because obviously he was scared of getting lynched and whooped over here. But not that would have happened over here, but in his mentality from Mississippi, which is where he was from, that's what was happening at that particular point with Jim Crow and etc. Anyway, we met this lady who just looked spitting image of his mum, which was a bit freaky because our mum passed away a few years ago. And she said, my hobby is genealogy and archiving genealogy. And we'd never met this lady before. And pretty bemusing.
Her exact line was, she said, so I'm sat there with Dom, and she says, and Dom's son. And she said, when I do, what was it? When I do research and I archive genealogy. That's Dom's thing.
It's
weird.
So weird, isn't it? It's so weird. As an aside, and I know, Dom, you like asides, and I really like your sort of random asides in the book. I think they work beautifully. You go off about Ben Affleck or the CIA or whatever, but it all flows nicely. But as an aside, I met one of my brothers that I'd never met before, one of my father's children. My father was quite a busy man, and I went to meet him in Leeds, and we had the same cutlery and we had the same glassware. It was so weird, and we'd never met. So yes, there is definitely something in it, isn't there? There's no doubt about it.
And I know we're going to talk about genealogy, but what that says to me is that unknowingly there's some kind of matrix AI, if you like, built into individual people. And when we discuss the people we're going to discuss today, I think, hopefully the listeners will bear that in mind. That it's not just about that they're related to a king or Charlemagne or whatever. It's the fact that seem to have been monitored for this particular lineage that brings out this kind of behavioral trait that means they can make or seemingly make decisions or go along with decisions that could basically kill thousands or millions of people. And
you do talk about that, don't you? That kind of underlying vibration that sort of exists, that it's almost like they're born to be, they are reared to be kings or queens over us, aren't they? That's which, honestly, coming from my background, strong working class background, very kick-ass background, my mum would take out anybody who looked at us the wrong way, right? We don't tolerate that sort of stuff. we don't do doff caps or anything like that coming from the Poulton clan, right? That's not where we're coming from, which is again why your book really resonates with me, because I think it's so important to name names. So important. We don't do it enough, do we? We do banners, we go globalists or this, but naming names drills down on who is actually put their name on the can. And I think both of you, like me, also realize there are much bigger agendas, but if these people are prepared to put their name on the tin, then they should be held accountable, right?
100%.
Yeah. And not only that, the people that are backing them should be held accountable as well.
Yes.
And the people, for instance, like Johnson, for argument's sake, who was backed by JCB, the guy Banforth, who's a baron now, and unknowingly to Johnson, I don't know if you got to that part in the book, but knowingly to Johnson, he was in Israel kissing the wall, or the glory hole, as Chris calls it. He was kissing the wall, and he was funded by Banforth, and one of Banforth JCB's biggest customers is the IDF or the Israeli government, and they use JCBs to flatten homes in the West Bank.
Good Lord. I mean, this is the reality, isn't it? It's like when you talk about the publishing of the spy novels, and when you look at the publishers, but I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it? It's all these invisible links that we don't see. But today we're gonna come down on them hard, which is going to be great, right? So, well, let's start really. So, I mean, we've already started. What am I saying? So, yeah, go back to the sheep farm, 2020. You were trying to make sense of it, as indeed we all were. So, either of you can kind of pick up from my question. So I think really initially, who out of the two of you decided this is what we need to do? We need to start speaking out about this. And you're very fortunate that you're two brothers doing it together, because you know what a snake world we are in, whether it's legacy media or alternative media. There's snakes, right?
I like that, because
go on, then.
All the other genealogy stuff will be Dom's department, I would imagine. But Dom had been, we used to have long chats way before 2020. Obviously, we've both been kind of conspiratorial minded, as you might say, forever, for as long as I can remember. But Dom had wanted to do some kind of, I don't know, I think it was before podcasts, wasn't it?
I didn't even know what podcasts were.
No, podcasts didn't exist. So he wanted to do some kind of YouTube stuff. So he started a little thing up. What was it called again? We talked about it yesterday.
Shut the Flock Up. It was actually Sheep Farm, but a series called Shut the Flock Up. Yeah.
So years and years ago, he talked about doing this thing. He'd come up with an idea for Sheep Farm. So we should call it Sheep Farm, because we were born on a farm. Well, we lived on a farm, Sheep Farm. And then 2020 happened, because he'd done a few videos himself. I think he'd done about 7, hadn't you? And he kept trying to drag me in. I'd even done a logo for Sheep Farm and stuff. But I didn't really want to do it, if I'm honest. I just wanted to do the artwork. And then when we did it was the Wancock one, wasn't it? That was the first one. And he's like, oh no, we should do a recording, like when we talk on the phone, because we talk for hours. Let's just try and record it, because we come up with some good stuff, you know. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm really thinking, you're not really, whatever, maybe one day. And then he pinned me down to do a recording of the Wancock one, and said, we're just going to.
That's Matt Hancock, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. No, I love the names. Savage Dabhead. I mean, they're brilliant names. Love them.
Got to take the piss out of these people.
You have to. You really have to. But Hancock was particularly treasonous, wasn't he? I mean, because while he was pushing these totalitarian measures on us, he was having an affair and getting very handsy and lining up his celebrity career. But go on, carry on, Chris.
No one wants to talk about this stuff anymore. And I think it's really important, like with Dom's book, to keep this stuff there, because it's one of it's the biggest thing that's happened in our lifetime, along with 9/11, I suppose. But so we recorded the Wancock one, and then that were it, really. We've done one just about every week since, haven't we? So Dom deep dives into the backgrounds of them, and then we just chat about it.
And I think both of you have the same thing in common with me, and that is you see absolutely that C-19 was a crime against humanity. It was, I think, Dom, you and I'm going to paraphrase you very badly, but it was essentially the moment when we realized that the state was prepared to attack its citizens, right? That was the reality. But so few could see it. I saw it coming. I saw it coming. I was speaking out about it before it even hit in March 2020. So, but yeah, go on. Any of you pick that up, that attack on us as people?
Well, it was the first one that was, I'm sure we've been attacked before, but it was the first overt attack, wasn't it? The first that was right in our faces, if you like, attack. And it was so blatantly obvious. I mean, because we've been in this research for so long, it was obvious to us. But my neighbours, obviously, they were banging pots and pans on a Thursday night, wearing masks, standing like melons in a shop or what have you. Yeah, exactly. It was rather worrying, to say the least, because it was like everybody had been lobotomized at that point. And like Chris says, it's very important that we keep bringing this up, because like people who've written history books about World War I and World War II and shown that the funders of these wars were the same people and families that we're talking about that funded C-19.
Right.
Very same operation.
Exactly that. And I think both of you are of the same mind that what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with traitors. These are treasonous people. And Chris, I absolutely agree with you. I did a sort of review looking back at C-19. And for the most part, a lot of people, like you say, it's like they want to shut it out. What do you think that is, Chris? Do you think that's some sort of, I don't know, national malaise, or what is it that's happened that makes people want to...
But people really don't want to discuss it anymore. Like in, for instance, the World Cup, that young lad dropped playing after being in World Cup. He was 25-year-old, and all these footballers going down. People who watch football all the time don't want to talk about that. Or I don't know if they are in denial, or they're literally just, there's some kind of shutdown mechanism where they just can't bring themselves to put two and two together.
I would say that they've got MK Ultra to such a point that they know they've got control of the mass majority of people in different countries, whatever country it is. And the test probably was banging pots and pans on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, you know?
In my naivety, I said to Dom, this is it, Dom. This is so obvious that we're going to be matching in streets within a week, because it's so obvious. I was a naive one.
Yeah. I went to quite a lot of obviously the gatherings and the protests against it, and I think one of the biggest ones was in Trafalgar Square, and I think that was in either the August or the September of 2020. And I posted a video to what was then Twitter, now X, and I posted a video, and it had like nearly 2 million views. But the amount of death threats I had, people were like, because I was saying, I'm not here, I'm here, I'm not masked up, you know, come on, it's time for us to come together, we need to. And people were literally like, these so-called people worried about the health of the nation were telling me to die. So it was just really, it was really weird stuff. The psychological impact was so great, and it was awful because it divided families as well. I interviewed people who quite literally were watching their loved ones die on iPad because they were in care homes. And you've dedicated the book, Dom, to these people, all these lost people of C-19. My brother and my sister died during C-19. Heartbreaking, absolutely I mean, my brother, kidney disease, but my sister still a big question mark over, because she was a carer in a care home. And you remember they were mandating jabs, weren't they?
Savage jabbed.
Exactly that. So let's just talk, before we get into like the meat of the book, about the lockstep that was also taking place, which surely that was the moment. I mean, Chris, you talking about how you were hoping people were going to start marching down the streets, but the fact that it was happening all around the world, except with exceptions like Sweden, that should also have been a good indicator, right? That something was desperately wrong.
Well, to us, I mean, it was it just solidified all your theories, that some seemed a bit batshit, but it solidified them all, that everything you'd thought for the last 10, 20 years was true, that they're all working in,
And how strange as well that them marches, I mean, I've never had the privilege of going on one. We were doing podcasts throughout that, but there was so much togetherness there. But yet, 2-3 years on, such a huge divide within these people now. When you talk about Tommy Rubenstein and all the other people, that I were talking to people who agreed with everything you say about C-19, and then have gone down this other road, which is bordering, I can't even think about what it is, funded by Israel anyway, mainly. For want of a better phrase. But so we don't even get on now. You know, people that were on that marches together fighting that one particular thing now fall out over still a little.
Divide and conquer mechanics have been thrown at it, haven't
exactly
they?
what it is. It's exactly what it is. But there was also a lot of chances, a lot of opportunists, a lot of grifters who saw that there was money to be made during C19 as well. And I mean, even like really wealthy people were attempting to raise money for various things, very interesting stuff. And I think we've also seen that as well. These very, very middle class organizations that suddenly sprung up that were apparently bringing people together. And actually, we've now seen that they're very much part of that divide and conquer agenda that is taking place. But, you know, for a brief period of time, people did come together. But I've always been a lone ranger. I'm somebody who just kind of always flies solo because I might want to report on somebody at some stage, so I don't want to become buddies with them, right? Do you know what I mean? I'm not. I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist, and I don't hide that fact. That doesn't mean I'm about to snitch on people either. But I like to believe myself to be an honest journalist, a real journalist. So if I see something untoward, I will report on it, whether that's my mate or not. Which obviously,
how long have you been doing Wake Up now, Sonia?
Second year, and it's been such an incredible experience, Chris. I come from mainstream media, and you can kind of tell that about me, really, right? The way that I present myself.
I remember you on TV, yeah.
Well, I learned so much from it. I learned where they were going wrong. And one of the things that I realized was that what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, and which I believe I have done, is create a show that is accessible, but we take topics that are usually outside the remit of mainstream and you know, and essentially sort of distill them to a level where they can be understood by masses of people. Because I don't see any point in doing what we do unless lots of people are going to receive it, right?
But your Dr. Kelly one you did last Friday, I mean, that was very accessible to people.
Yes.
And it's a story that again, has been forgotten about. No one wants to talk about it anymore, do they?
And it was key to murdering 1 million people in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Exactly. And actually, Dom, a lot of your book, it kind of touches on that whole era anyway, because of the Blair era. And, you know, you talk about Charles Faulkner and everything. So, but yes, I mean, I think that's really important to be able to do that. And it's hard. I mean, I've had to learn everything from scratch myself. I was used to being in multi-million-pound studios where everything is done for you, including sometimes people picking out what you're going to wear, although never with me, because I was always like, I'm in charge. But, you know, generally your makeup done and everything. And then I had to do everything myself, and I actually love it. And the biggest worry for me was financial, because like, how am I going to be able to do this? But actually, hallelujah, thank you, Wake Up viewers, I jumped and they caught me. And I, you know, and I get a decent amount of money every month. And now I'm saving towards building a completely separate platform that has Wake Up on it, has a live stream, so people don't have to go through all the digital ID of YouTube and any of those other things. So bit by bit, build it and they will come. That's where I'm coming from.
No, it's good. It's good. So it's like you found your little home here. I think
I have, and it just feels so good, because I was always that kind of square peg in a round hole in mainstream media, you know, because all mainstream media always needs its rebel, right? That one, because it creates this illusion that it is actually balanced. And so I was, I was actually assisting the agenda without meaning to. And a lot of people who claim to be alternative, but they'd give their right arm to be able to get a seat on mainstream media. And you can always tell the difference when it happens. Anyway, look, you've got me ranting, guys. This is not.
No, I like it. I love it. That's what it should do. And I always think as well that people are wanting shows. They don't want to watch mainstream media anymore, and then they're not all interested in just watching Instagram videos about people going like this, looking at the phone and taking pictures. You know, they want some meat on the bone. And,
it's like you're doing a real news show there, Sonia.
Yeah, thank you.
News show. It's important stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, with good energy as well. With energy. Yeah.
It was funny how the BBC are trying to do it. They're trying to recreate that podcast kind of casual chat. Just spouting out the same shit.
They can't do it though, can they?
They can't do it. They haven't got the energy or the
corporates can't do it. They haven't got. They can't do that individualism. It's just impossible, because they have to hire it in. And when you hire it in, they're a mercenary. No matter how funny they were before they were hired in, they're then scripted to say what the corporation wants them, even if it's watered down over time. and the person doesn't actually know that it's happened to them.
You can imagine them. We want you to capture this intimate conversation on the BBC.
It's so inauthentic, and that's where our strength is, right? Is the authenticity. People know what we're doing is real, right? I mean, I would, even if I wasn't getting enough money every month, I would find a way to do it anyway, because it's just like that. You just get driven to do it. So I do, which is why, of course, they now want to introduce this universal household levy, a broadcast license that covers broadband. So that's their next plan. And when Burnham came in this week, he kept Lisa Nandy in place as the culture secretary, crazy woman. And she's in charge of culture, but her and Matt Britton, the new boss of the BBC, who lives close to me actually, but they together want to introduce this universal household levy, which will go right down to the broadband providers. So it will essentially cover everybody, which of course we don't want. You don't want that.
Ofcom for everybody. Kind of
exactly that, which again is another reason I want to build my own platform. Exactly.
Yeah, we spent in 2022, our website, we have a members only section, and I got somebody I knew to build me the audio side, so we're delivering podcasts on it initially, and now we can deliver video on it as well. So now that's locked into our website, where it's like a members only. It's been like that since 2022.
Yeah, we saw you saw the fear, didn't you? You saw it coming down the corner, effectively.
Yeah,
but that thing you're talking about, Sonia, would that cover that Don? Would that cover?
Well, it'd just be a fixed price for broadband, wouldn't it?
It would. And what they're talking about is they're not, with the you can opt out of the TV license, obviously, but they're not allowing for that. What they're saying is they would get the information from the broadband providers of who's getting that service, and they would charge at source.
Yes.
So
flat rate tax.
Exactly.
Basically.
But that's not come in yet. And the thing is that we can keep fighting against it. And I do believe I believe that there is an agenda, and I know there is an agenda, but I also know that they sometimes filter stuff out to us to see how we're going to react to it and whether we're going to do any decent pushback. Look, this week, Andy Burnham realized that digital ID is long-term problematic in the UK. We don't like that sort of stuff. No, we don't like surveillance-y stuff, anything like that. We always reject it, and they've been trying it since Tony Blair. So the first thing he did, obviously, was announce that they were taking out digital ID. It'll be back,
just to get everyone on side of Andy Burnham. Yeah.
Exactly that. So I want to go back to the pandemic.
Just a quick one as well. Just sorry, overnight, he's been in one day, and we've got Wes Sweet thing now as Defence Secretary. That's going to go well. Overnight they've allowed the Americans to launch, I think, B-52s or B-51s to bomb Iran from here.
Right.
Really right.
I was actually going to.
We're involved now.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was literally going to finish asking what you thought about all of the quick changes to Andy Burnham. But seeing as we're there now, before we kick off proper, it is interesting because they've done the whole thing, haven't they? We're drilling in the North Sea. We're doing a reduction in energy, VAT. We're going to ditch the idea of jury-less trials, digital ID gone. Now, that seems like a tremendous amount of things that have happened in like 48 hours. So if it is the case that they can just dispatch with the idea, because Lammy wanted to bring in these jury-less trials, if that is the case, why haven't all these other prime ministers done it then? If this man can come in and say no digital ID, no jury-less trials.
It's quite obvious what they've done. All the shit that Starmer came out, he's just retracted it to get everybody on side again.
Oh, the majority of it. A lot of it. There'll be things that have sneaked in.
Yeah, there'll be shit.
And what they use in the book I mentioned, I talk about Nadeem Zahawi, Emperor Ming. And he was part of the founding of a company called YouGov.
Yes.
Him and another guy called Stephen Shakespeare, ironically.
Yes.
And he was actually called Kowalski or something like that. He's East German or Polish. Stephen Shakespeare. He's used his wife's name as his name. And he was one of Jeffrey Archer's, I think we're called the Archer Incubator, where they had like several prominent politicians who were actually part of the C-19 cabinet. Priti Patel, Saviz Jabed, all these people were all part of Lord Archer's incubator, and Zahawi was one of them. In fact, he was called, there's a famous artist, I forget his name, they were both Kurds, and Archer called them My Lemon Kurds. That's what he called them.
Wow.
Yeah,
you're a mine of information.
I forgot the chap's name now, but during the whole process of Zahawi's political career, he was part of a governmental. You've talked about the Kurds in Iran, yeah. He was part of a governmental. Again, it's in my book. I forget what it's called, but he was part of the government backing the Kurds.
Wow.
And also the oil. He was part of an oil field. He was a shareholder in an oil company during C-19, all the way through these. And one of the shareholders he was part of was Nat Rothschild.
I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? And that's the thing that I think I got from Traitors, your book, is how small our world really is, right? It's a small number of people that are making these extraordinary decisions. And then what they do, obviously, is they compromise everybody else who's got used to whatever, the 9 to 5, they got used to their mortgage, all these things that essentially trap people, and that's how they get kind of like the lower orders involved, isn't it? So
yes,
but I think that I think that's a really good starting point to head into your book, is in terms of like that COVID cabinet, as you call them. It's a very interesting group of people, right? And some of the people you just mentioned there, I mean, there's not one person there that I would want to take as a friend personally. No. They're just horrible, reprehensible people. Do you think that you have to be almost compromisable in order to be able to get into those positions in the first place?
Yes, because look, maybe some of these people get into politics with the best intentions, like some lawyers do, like some policemen do, like some whatever do. Like I was speaking to a teacher the other day. She's probably sick of the education system, but now she's in it because her pension's tied to it, etc. So some people it's over time. It's a slow process, a slow kill. But some people are. Savage Jabed, for instance, was from a background of banking. He was earning millions a year. I forget which massive bank he was working for, several. And then he takes 120 grand a year on the advice of Archer to become an MP. I mean, does that make any sense? He was earning, I think, 3 million a year or something like that as a banker.
Yeah.
Unless he's promised something else further down the line.
Well, that is the thing. You have to. I'm of the mind that these people are, because they're money people. They're money and status people. So, like Josh Simon standing aside for Andy Burnham and now suddenly saying, "I want to focus on my family." Yeah, we're going to see you in the House of Lords in no time, mate. We know it, right? We know it.
Yeah. And also, this book is a snapshot into 2 years.
Yes.
It's not even, if you put it in context of the whole history of Parliament, it's 2 years of politicians worth of scumbags that we supposedly voted. I mean, I've never voted in my life, but we supposedly vote these people in. And it doesn't matter who you look at, whether it's Farage, all these saviours that have popped up, they're all funded by the same NGOs and people who own these large corporations. My business background helped, like your journalist background helped you. My business background helped me in this because I understand things in business. I've been in meetings where you can tell people aren't on the same page, just jump all over you. There's no morality to what the decisions. And so these are the people that then go into politics.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you expect?
Well, very immoral people. But I wonder if did any MPs emerge from that era, like, in a decent light? Did any of them? Surely there has to be at least one or two out of 650 MPs.
Well, if I suppose the only one that spoke out about on a big way was Andrew Bridgen, wasn't he?
Right, but then he'd already voted for lockdowns and
already had 2 jabs.
Yeah. And wasn't it like at Mason's Pharmacy or something?
I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, but there's always some. The one thing that stood out for me is all of these people, probably bar none, I can't remember anybody who wasn't, all got ties to Israel. And I found that pretty amazing statistic, because even when you jump into Labour, they're the same. And there's no other country, Nigeria out funding, or Somalia or Argentina funding everyone else. It's just links back to
Look at
Israel.
that in America fight where they were going to join the armed forces, American armed forces with the Israeli ones.
Well, they're doing it. Has that vote fallen through? Because they were talking about. Oh,
I think so.
Look at the fact that it was contemplated, though.
I know. I mean, if that's America, that's us as well, isn't it? Really?
Yes.
No two ways about it.
Exactly. And actually, a lot of the stuff that I wanted to ask you about at the start of the book, we've already quite naturally, organically already covered it, actually. And I find that happens anyway. When you allow people just to flow, I like to talk to people in their element, because that's when you get the best out of them. Right? Don't invite people on to talk about something that they don't feel passionate about, because that
it's a bit early for me to have a bottle of wine, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, I've essentially got the day off after this, so I'm going to go and spend it in. Yeah, I've already got beers chilling, mate. I'm that kind of girl. Right. So, so that COVID cabinet, they sold us out their links. And I think actually we can probably already start going into, to a degree, some of the bloodlines of them. Let's kick off with Boris Johnson as a perfect example. Now, Boris Johnson, Dom, I think you captured him perfectly. So we are talking about Alexander Boris the Pfeffel Johnson, right? Not a regular name. No. You talk about him as a media creation. I've always talked about him as a media creation. And I think some of the things that I really enjoy, not only about your podcasts, and of course the book is based on the podcasts, is the fact that you come up with these interesting little pieces of information, such as, for example, on the IMDb, so that's the Internet Movie Database, he's listed as an actor. And he was sold to us as harmless and bumbling, but he's actually a compulsive liar who comes from a family who believes in eugenics and depopulation. So either of you, take it away. Tell me your thoughts on Boris Johnson.
Go on, Chris. I've talked enough about him.
Well, I mean, you know most of the detail, though, but he was clearly brought in to do one of the most heinous things ever done on the British public. Like you say, Sonia, in lockstep with all the other countries who brought in their own little heinous.
Brilliant illustration from Chris. You've captured him so perfectly here.
I was never that happy with that drawing. I was never that happy with that.
I think it's brilliant, me. Yeah,
it's all right. Fabulous.
Typical artist.
Yeah, he's typical artist. I was talking it. But a lot of these drawings I did of these politicians, they were done through genuine anger at the time. I remember being really furious, and my only way to express myself is through a doodle and make him look as ridiculous as possible.
Right.
So they often have slava coming out the mouth and their eyes going sideways and scruff. Yeah, just try and make them look as horrible as possible. But I found that quite therapeutic at the time, to be fair, drawing those pictures. So, yeah,
but you're right. He took on that job, right? And even though, like me, there are so many other kind of influences operating on them in the background. But he, as I said before, he put his face on the can. So he has to be held responsible. It was almost like he was chosen for the job, right?
Well, I was just going to say, and going through what me and Dom did at the time, it was quite clear he was lined up through his dad.
Right.
Almost like his dad sold him out. That's the impression we got in it, Dom. Just as an impression, and he was chosen to do that job. He was put on like you said on Have I Got News for You? He was always there in the background, wasn't he? Building up to him being prime minister.
I would say it was the first reality star prime minister.
Good point.
Yeah, because I found his first show he did was for the BBC. I think it was around 1998. And it was about supermarkets, and anyway, and then he went on Top Gear and all these other BBC programs. And I found out a link to the BBC and the Johnson family. Marina Wheeler, her father, Sir Charles Cornelius Wheeler, was one of the second producer of Panorama. But
that's mad.
Yeah,
that's his second wife, right?
That's from his second wife. Yes.
Yeah.
So he in the 50s. He was the first producer. Didn't last right long, and he was brought in. But he was an intelligence officer, and he was an underling to Fleming, the Bond writer. And so all of these people are intrinsically linked into the intelligence services. And up pops Boris as a BBC lifetime actor, as Mark Devlin calls him. I think that's a good term to use for these people.
But at exact same time, Dom, what were happening with Trump? He was doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. As a TV personality before he was a politician. Yeah.
And it shouldn't shock anybody that Stanley Johnson, who's, I don't know, it's one of them people that you'd love to duck underwater in a swimming pool at some point.
Yeah, wife beater as well.
Yeah. But he obviously worked, I don't know if people know this, but he worked directly for John D. Rockefeller III in the US on population control. This was in the 60s. So when Boris was born in the States, they were working in America or living in America while Stanley was over there. And he worked directly for John D. Rockefeller III. And all these things started happening after. It's like someone's written a script for that particular family.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because wasn't it Stanley Johnson? Did he write the Marburg virus?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And he wrote some books about eugenics as well.
Eugenics and population control. And actually, Boris has popped up. He used to have a blog, borisjohnson.com, which has since disappeared since I've been writing. I took a lot of information from that blog. Fortunately, I copied all the information down, if you're listening, Boris, on the blog. And he was talking about population control in the mid-2000s while it was, I think it was pre-being mayor. So his blog was written for a decade or more, and it was left up there. And it's now gone, or it had last time I looked anyway.
Sanitized.
Clean
it off the net. I had a stand-up argument with his sister, Rachel, in a studio, and all I'd said, I was called in to do a pilot when Rupert Murdoch, they were planning to launch it as Talk TV, and they asked me to take part in this pilot, but they offered me a really good amount of money, and it was November. And I thought, I'm going to have the money for Christmas, but I won't appear on the show, right? So I went along. It was Jeremy Kyle hosting it,
lovely guy. Yeah.
Rachel Johnson, Vanessa Feltz, and this lovely ex-cop, kind of hero cop, whose name unfortunately has slipped me. But all I said at that time this was about 2023, I think. All I said was about Boris Johnson was that he's lazy and he took a lot of holidays, and all Feltz, Johnson and Kyle all turned on me, and Rachel Johnson got so upset that she shouted for the producer and said, if I'm chosen for the final show, I will not accept it if she also gets in. And it was the most hilarious thing, but I saw very close up how these people work, because Rachel isn't talented. They're not talented.
No.
Right? What they are is a bloodline family, as you've so eloquently outlined. So talk to me about that, about this bloodline family and the importance of it.
There was a BBC documentary called I Want to Be World King, and it was about Boris Johnson, or the boy who wanted to be king. That's what it was called. And it was the show was about Boris Johnson. His sister was on it, Rachel was on it, saying that he used to say he wanted to be world king when he was a kid. Now, him saying that, I don't know anybody who'd want to be leader. He changed that to prime minister after a while. So I think some of these people, it is in, like we were talking earlier about the DNA, it is something that pops into this genealogy, and it seems to be that they're tagged, whatever, traced. Chris takes it back to the Omen film, don't you, Damien?
Oh, go on, Chris.
Well, it just as an observation is, do you remember in Omen 2 with a little boy, and he does something and he gets dragged into because he doesn't know that he's the Antichrist, and he gets dragged into, I think it's the guy who played the robot in the second Alien film, and he drags him in. Lance Henriksen, is it? I think he passed away, and he drags him in, and he tells him that there's people watching you, and we're here to look after you and see your ascension to become the Antichrist. And I kind of equate it to that, because I'm not sure Boris Johnson knew all along what he was getting lined up for. It seems like his dad seemed like the dark entity. Like you say, he was a wife beater, eugenist. I'm not saying Boris didn't believe it all, but it almost seemed like he was getting lined up, and he thought it was all a bit of a laugh and a joke. And then it kind of dawned on him almost. It seemed like it dawned on him what he'd actually been lined up for. I mean, I might be wrong. It's all, it's all guesswork. But if you remember when we had the first lockdown, him and his wife, they were kind of laughing and joking about it, weren't they? And the thing you said, didn't you, Dom? He went into St. Thomas's Hospital because he got COVID, apparently.
Hi, folks. I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus. That's to say, a temperature and a persistent cough. And on the advice of the chief medical officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive. So I am working from home. I'm self-isolating, and that's entirely the right thing to do.
And he came out looking very shaken, like he'd seen the pit of
And
hell.
we've since found out about St. Thomas's Hospital in some other research that I've done with a friend of mine, Matt Sergio, that there's a guy called Dr. William Sargent. I don't know if you've come across that name. He was running the British arm of the MK Ultra operation in the UK. And he worked alongside Frank Olson, who was the intermediary between the CIA and MI6, it would have been. Frank Olson, who accidentally fell out the window laced with LSD in America. Oh. Yeah, that Frank Olson. They made the Netflix series about, I forget what it was called now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dr. William Sargent, he came up because he was a doctor at St. Thomas's Hospital, where they were conducting what they call sleep treatment. They were getting prominent, mainly ladies, not men, where they put them in induced comas when they had mental illness issues. Did a full presentation on this, and they'd play music or sounds to them while they were asleep, and then they get them out and electrocute them, lobotomize, pharmaceutically lobotomize them, and all sorts of stuff. The lady that was in, is it Calendar Girls, Chris? I forget her name now. She was one of the subjects because she was a ballet dancer and she had ended up with anorexia. Yeah, it was a horrible story. And she was actually one of his Dr. Sargent's victims. Anyway, cut a long story short, St. Thomas's was where a lot of that work was done, among other hospitals as well.
Fascinating.
And the reason we got to that part was that Jane Asher's father, Richard Asher, was linked to working with Dr. William Sargent on mind control and hypnosis. He was he specialized in hypnosis, Dr. Asher.
Wow.
While Paul McCartney was living there. Yes. So the story is that Paul McCartney woke up with the song Yesterday in his head. Okay. And didn't know where he'd wrote it from. And he was living with Margaret Elliott, who was another bloodline family, traced her genealogy back to the Earls of Saint-Germain, the Elliott family, who actually have their own Masonic lodge in Cornwall, the Elliott Lodge, yeah. And so I know we're going off piste again, but we said like that.
Go on, let it flow. Flow.
Yeah. So Paul McCartney wakes up with the song Yesterday and another song as well, I forget which one it was, in his head. Now, Richard Asher, Dr. Richard Asher, who was found in his basement a week after he went missing dead in the late 60s, by the way, he wrote a paper called Respectable Hypnosis, and you can look it up, it's on the internet. Dr. Richard Asher, Respectable Hypnosis, and basically explains MK Ultra in a nutshell. Now, Mike Williams of Sage Quay says he's a clinical hypnotist as well as Mike. He said hypnosis is only one tool in the toolbox. It's not the only thing. But yeah, it interesting ties back to other things, if you like. And the Asher bloodline was controlling. Anyway, sorry.
Jane Asher, no, not at all. So Jane Asher was obviously very popular, wasn't she, during the 70s or 80s? Is this all Tavistock related? Or
yes.
Is it? Oh, it is.
Yes.
Right. So obviously Tavistock have been engineering society since at least when, do you think?
Well, you do know Dolly Draper, Kate Garraway's husband, was a director at Tavistock, don't you?
Wait, what did you say? Dolly Draper?
His nickname was Dolly. Yeah, Derek Draper was a director at Tavistock Hospital.
I did not realise that. That is curious because obviously, and I'm sure our viewers will remember this, it was Derek Draper who was used as the big celebrity COVID man, right? Yeah. And we had obviously Kate weeping and wailing and Piers Morgan telling us that she couldn't afford to get a new car and all this sort of stuff, extraordinary stuff. I didn't realise his association.
I might have got the director wrong. He might have been an administrator, but he definitely worked at the Tavistock.
But had some association.
He was a psychologist at the Tavistock Hospital.
Very interesting.
Yeah, sat on the board. Yeah. It's definitely sat on them.
But also going back to St. Thomas's, you hear people talk about the fact that some of these hospitals have got entire wings still devoted to MK Ultra and mind control. So you would hazard a guess that St. Thomas is one of them, and that's where Boris went in.
Boris Johnson
went into a mental asylum. And we've seen that as a that's occurred quite a lot, where a lot of these these people's wives have gone in mental asylums. She was a victim of some kind.
Charlotte was a victim, a definite victim, all along. A breeding mare, if you like, that was chosen probably. And I can't. She went into the Maudsley Hospital, which again has links to the Frankfurt School and all of the people that were doing early mind control as well. So the Maudsley Hospital was a horrific place.
And so we don't really go on. Sorry, Chris, go on.
I was going to say, if you remember Papa Johnson when he went in the I'm a celebrity,
get me out of here.
Get me out of here. Yeah. When he went in there, and you actually heard people. I heard people actually say he's like the nation's granddad. But they never mentioned that he broke his wife's jaw, did they? And
broke a nose, Chris. He broke a nose.
Wound me up something terrible. He was the nation's granddad, and the Queen was the nation's grandmother, and it was absolutely farcical. But we live in a inverted gaslighting world where they tell us this kind of stuff and expect it to stick, right? So, and that's the same thing, isn't it? What you're just talking about there is Stanley Johnson was set up as somebody who was very jovial. He's like, grandpa, sit on his knee at tea time, all that sort of stuff. But the truth is, they're very sinister people with sinister agendas. I want to just pick up on something that one of you said, and that was uncertain about whether Boris Johnson actually knew what was set out for him. So you're in no doubt whatsoever, I think both of you, that this was a path that was already set out for him from birth.
I will. If you think about an academy, let's say you're a footballer and you go to an academy, yeah? So a lot of these people, they'll go to, I'll use Oxford as a primary. People think I've got it in for Oxford. I haven't got it in for Oxford at all. It just so happens that it seems to happen at these places, right? I'm not saying there shouldn't be places where people get higher education, but it should be available to everybody. But anyway, that's another story. Anyway,
it's very elitist, isn't it? The whole Oxbridge thing, and the vast majority of people in media have come through those channels, as indeed have spies.
Yes, but, and if you look at them, they're not very, like you said about Rit, they're not very talented. They're not. They are well trained to what they call debate, which isn't really a debate. It's basically trying to force you into agreeing with their reasoning or opinions. It's not a debate. We're having a conversation. This isn't a debate either, but we're not trying to force opinions on each other.
No.
So, but it just so happens that the people that are getting chosen there are being taught by people who have links to the intelligence services. So it stands to reason that we should be questioning what the background of all this stuff is, you know?
That's an important point you just picked up there, because you talk about it in the book, and that is, we are talking about a lot of people who are actually really mediocre, but that's what makes them so useful, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, you've got less talent than the next person. We were chatting to, I think it was Mike Eden who mentioned it, with Patrick Vallance. And when they were at university, they couldn't understand how he was fast-tracked through to work for all these huge pharmaceutical companies when there were a lot more talented people within their peer group who weren't picked out. And it's probably because he knew he weren't that talented, and they're picked out. They're the Gary Barlows of the politics world, if you like.
They are. Although he can write a song, to be fair.
Can write a song, yeah.
Gary Barlow probably the worst one to choose out of them, what if I?
Well, no, because
out of all, to take that.
Well, no, because I would say that he was the one. That is the worship of mediocrity, isn't it? Where if you lower the bar and say that's the best, the next generation think that's the best.
Yes.
Whether it's No Direction, as my daughter likes watching, or One Direction, as it's properly called. I call them No Direction. And and that is, even though, like we're talking about the 60s and the Beatles, people get into a big argument, if you like, or the Doors, about how I'd say they were all contrived. Well, I think we know that now. Doesn't mean to say they knew they were contrived. You know, there could still be talented people writing songs. I'm sure there were back in the 60s, 50s, 60s. But now it's got so controlled that they don't even allow them to do any of that anymore.
And it seems from what we've done is there's a lot of victims in these bloodlines. They're not all evil psychos. There's a lot of victims in there, isn't there? Like a lot of mental institutions. You know,
well, we've just done one, Chris, haven't we? We're just doing a series on Yoko Ono, and for years, I'm not a Beatles fan, right? We released. They're on actually. I haven't released them yet, but they're on Mike Williams' Sage Aquay channel. So there's 2 episodes there. Me,
not
Chris,
Beatles
and Matt
fans.
Sergio did. No,
spoke about for about 12 hours, I think now.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
But Yoko Ono was in a psychiatric ward.
Yeah, I was going to say, we realised Yoko Ono was a victim, not quite.
And I found that the US was running MK Ultra in a lot of the naval bases and army bases in and around Tokyo. Like, for instance, the Asugi Naval Base, where Lee Harvey Oswald was based, had Operation Artichoke or Operation MK Ultra there at the same time.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I know. So you've got Yoko Ono, who ended up went to the same school that Linda McCartney went to in Scarsdale. In
No.
Yeah. Not at the same time, different times,
but
lived
still
in Scarsdale as well, where Linda McCartney was from. Linda McCartney's surname was originally Epstein. Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to write the script, you couldn't write this. You couldn't have the imagination to write it. And
it's extraordinary. So it goes back to that whole thing, isn't it? How a relatively small number of people who are closely linked are running things on the world stage. That's what it essentially goes back to. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore.
No. Yoko Ono was at school in the same class as 2 Japanese emperors.
Wow.
Future emperors. She's related to 30 Japanese emperors directly.
But we went into that, didn't we, Dom? I was talking to this about Matt when we did his live show. Thinking, because I mean, I don't know much about the Beatles, but you always had that opinion. Yoko Ono split the Beatles up. She went in there with John Lennon and split the Beatles up. And I had that opinion. But halfway through it, you start to feel a bit sorry for Yoko Ono and think she's just been used. She's she was in a mental asylum.
So you saw her like the victim instead of wow.
The perpetrator of the end of the Beatles, whatever that means.
Right. Strong narrative. They did. They came out all guns against her. It is absolutely fascinating when you start to look at it in a different way, that some of these people might not actually be the perpetrators, but they might actually be the victims of that system. It's
even, dare I say it, Tony B. Liar.
Well, I think one of the really important aspects that you get, and you outline this in the book, and I think it's important because going back again to the beginning and what informs these people is you realize that both Johnson and Tony B. Liar, as you call him, both went to schools where, well, child abuse was rife, right? So do you think that's a controlling mechanism as well?
Oh, 100%. It was at that time. Whether it is still, I don't know. I've heard it's changed since. Did a great interview with a chap called Pierce Cross, who was at one of the schools I mentioned actually in the book. And he's got his own channel on YouTube where he talks about this boarding school. In fact, he made a film called Boarding on Insanity.
I remember that. That was to do with abuse, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. A great guy, Piers, and that takes it to they're speaking about it live because he has some horrific stories on his film. But Boris Johnson spoke about being hit with several weapons, you call them, from a cane to a jockery bat, as he called it, which is like a rounder's bat, to a golf club. And the guy that was at his school, who was the headmaster, Billy Williamson, hit people on a daily basis. And he was saying he was beaten. On that blog that is taken down, says he was beaten, basically. Just beaten. And so I didn't find anything that he was abused sexually. There's no proof there that he was abused sexually. He's never spoken out that he was or he wasn't. There's nothing there. So, but certainly a lot of the teachers have been arrested since, and they were there when he was there. And another chap called Alex Renton.
Yes,
he's from an aristocratic background. He was at the same school, Ashdown House, when Boris was there, and he was a few years older than Boris, and he was abused. Now, that doesn't mean to say everybody was abused, because I'm sure you have more knowledge on this, that a lot of people are singled out for abuse. Sure. It's not necessarily everybody in the school gets abused, you know. But one of the interesting points where we picked up on this in our podcast originally, didn't we, Chris, that Rachel Johnson was the first girl to board at that school.
I saw that in the book.
Stanley had so much power, he could make the school. They didn't even have school uniforms for her.
And he didn't go to the school either, Dom, if you remember.
He didn't go to school to check. Yeah.
He signed her up for the school and his kids, and he never even visited the school. But he had the power to get her as the first girl to be in that school.
And you think of the trauma as well. At the time, their mother was in either the Maudsley Hospital or she'd been sectioned somewhere. He sent them off from Belgium. He was working in Belgium for the EU on some other population control. Anyway. So they were ripped out of the European school, the same school that Ursula von der Leyen went to, and a lot of other people who came up with all these think tanks. Mark Leonard, is it, who came up with a think tank? I forget the European Council on Foreign Relations or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. He went to the European school. So a lot of these influential people went to the Brussels school, as it was also called. So Johnson came over to Ashdown House. That school closed during 2021 or 22, and they put it down to C19 for the reason why it closed, ironically. So in effect, Boris closed it.
I did wonder. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Oh no, sorry, I've done that twice now.
No, sorry. I mean that's what's so lovely about being able to do this is we can bump into our words into each other and nobody cares, right? Because that's how real conversations happen.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring a point up that Dom always brings up before I forget is those Blair and Johnson, who were clearly, Blair was surrounded by paedophiles, wasn't he? But when they got into power, why didn't they not stop it? Why did they not close these institutions down?
Right.
Why did they continue? They had the clout to step in and bring it into the light, if you like.
Well,
they
actually went the other way and had people around them that was still involved in all that we found out in later years, which is even more strange, especially Blair.
So it's very interesting you make that point, because when you say you're not quite sure whether Boris was abused or not, right, but comes from that background, I always saw him as a gatekeeper, because if you remember, he was opposed to the child abuse inquiry because he said it was like spaffing money up against the wall, to paraphrase him, right?
Yeah.
So I saw that as a gatekeeping movement, really. But it's very interesting. So again, what you're talking about is they're not just born into these families, they're then put into certain educational environments. And it's almost like, I think, did you describe it as a factory, like a production line or something similar
like
to
a cookie
that?
cutter. Yeah, they're just, and Stanley Johnson went to the same schools and there was teachers there. I mapped it back. There's the teachers there. I mean, whether he was involved in that, Michael Gove was the same. He went to schools and there were teachers there at the time he was there. I think Rishi Sunak did as well. I might be wrong there, but now that doesn't mean to say all these kids were
fantastic. This is so good. You can tell it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Again, drawn with pure anger.
Yeah. And he was another one, weren't he? If he didn't get the jab, it was a selfish thing. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And he, I think it's in the book, there's where his friend got a contract for PPE of about 250 million from.
Well, did you see him this week? Because obviously the UK COVID inquiry is all about solidifying a narrative, making sure that none of them get in trouble. And so this week, Michael Gove came out and was like, we didn't do anything fraudulent, nothing criminal. And it's like Michelle Mone ended up with a multi-million-pound PPE deal for PPE that was no good, right? If I remember correctly.
And I think they're the tip of the iceberg.
They are.
I think they've been the fall guys for this for some reason. Maybe they don't like her or don't like Doug Barrowman or whatever it is. Yeah.
They do the inquiry, they've got to make out there's a bit.
When I say fall guys, I'm not feeling sorry for them, by the way. I'm just
no, I understand. But it's to use a scapegoat, isn't it? It's to highlight one person to take your attention away from everybody else. And of course, we cannot ignore the fact, by the way, just going back to the COVID cabinet, that a whole load of them are now in reform. Yes. Right. And so Zahawi, who was the vaccine minister, he's in reform. Right. Nadine Dorries, who but was given the job of like honing the Online Harms Act. Right. So these people, is reform any different? Just as an aside, do you think? Surely not.
No.
It's a continuation.
Lining up the next agenda. The next
just more fringe magnets.
Yes.
More fringe magnets.
Yeah, exactly that. So Tony Blair, right? Very
Can I just say
similar.
one more thing? Sorry, Sonia.
You can say whatever you want.
We were talking about this last night. The irony is of all this abuse and all this child stuff and cover-ups, Boris Johnson's great-grandfather founded the YMCA.
No.
Not the band.
Not the band,
No.
the village people. But yeah, his great-grandfather founded the YMCA. But I think it's via his mother's lineage, that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. No, anyway, it doesn't matter. It was his mum or dad, but
it's so curious because the YMCA, even though obviously it's a hostel for young men, a lot of those young men that go there are very vulnerable. They are often vulnerable, in strange cities that they don't necessarily know, and they rock up at these. So it's very interesting, isn't it? It is almost like
one thing I did see is that it was Stanley's line. His mother was called Williams, and I mentioned, and I couldn't find any evidence of this, but the headmaster at Ashdown House was called Billy Williams, who was beating everybody up. Now, there's a lot of Williamses, right? So I'm not saying they were related, but I also found two Wheelers. So there was Marina Wheeler and the guy that was the producer, stroke director of Have I Got News for You was someone called Paul Wheeler. Now, Marina Wheeler's mother is Indian. And Paul Wheeler was Indian. He's got his own YouTube channel and he's called, I forget. I'm going to mess it up if I say his name, but they were the same names, Wheeler. Now, I find that too much of a coincidence. I couldn't find any direct proof that they were related, but there's all these little things as well that are in there that you can't find any proper lines to say it's definitely that. But yeah,
so I would say, I mean, from what Dom's uncovered, it seems as a system with these schools and stuff that we probably I'll never understand. But this is where they come from, and it's just part of their upbringing. I think they see it as normal. I don't think it's even weird to them. I mean, you can call it satanic, call it whatever you like, but it just seems there's a system running that we don't understand.
Right.
These are the ones that run the country.
And we know that that's a reality because I interview people to do with childhood abuse as one example. And some people don't realize until they leave the home at 17, 18, that not all families carry on like that. So it's whatever you're kind of raised in, and if it's normalized, then so be it. So I think it's really interesting, though, the way that you have so clearly, both of you have defined these almost hot houses that are created for these individuals, right, to pass through so that they can then take their role on the world stage. No wonder it's difficult, though, for people from working class backgrounds to be able to kind of, penetrate these spaces. It's very, very hard. I didn't even come from a working class background. I came from probably what would have been called an underclass. Proudly so, and always make sure to carry it with me, it is a proud banner. I'm proud of that, and we had none of those kind of opportunities that these people have. So when I was on the same stage with all of them, I was one of the genuine people who had fought my own way through to get there. I earned my space, whereas the Rachel Johnsons, all of them, that they are, as you say, chosen. That's
but you could say Wancock earned his space, just in a slightly different, more corrupted way than you did.
Yes,
no, but he was willing to take the prize, if you like, whereas Sonia wasn't. No.
And I've been offered it. Yeah. I've been offered it many times. I was the lead talking head on This Morning on ITV for 10 years, and they offered me all manner of things, all manner of incentives, but they needed to train me a little bit, to rein me in. And I'm not built that way. I'm unmanageable. Right.
What do you think the offers are, Sonia? Do you think it's not like they just walk up to you with a briefcase full of cash?
No.
Go, there you go. Is it subtle to see if you're willing to see which way you're willing to bend, I suppose?
Well, with me, it was you have all the potential of someone who should have their own show. And obviously, you need to be less political. You need not to be talking about this. I was at ITN for 8 years. My job was to bring in outside stories. We were the ones who broke the contaminated blood scandal. And that was after I'd gone to David Cameron's house, with members of the contaminated blood campaign, and they were dying. This was blood that was imported from Skid Row in the States. Kenneth Clark gave it to British people, right? And these people were dying and nobody was doing anything. So I said in my very fiery way, right, we're going to David Cameron's house. And we did. And the video is still online of me and my cameraman facing off against his armed guards with guns like this outside his house. And I'm saying, I'm posting these details through his house. They're like, you don't want to do that? And I'm like, I'm doing it. And so I was unmanageable. They could never have. I was presented very well. I can debate well, all of those things that work very nicely on mainstream media, but I wasn't prepared to go that. I just can't. It's not the background I come from. We have ethics.
I bet you were the people like yourself are their worst nightmare because you're trained in what they do. Me and Chris aren't trained. We couldn't debate people like Piers Morgan. He'd shut us up in probably 2 seconds, because we don't know that language.
He knows the tricks.
Yeah.
We didn't mean you're wrong because you can't argue your point.
No,
no,
it's a difference. It's a whole different lifestyle, but I think it's very useful because I've quite literally taken what I learned from them and how they were using it for the wrong ends.
The closest thing
used it for the right ends. Yeah.
The closest thing we've come to that is we annoyed Dom Jolly, didn't we, Chris? A couple of years ago. He
should have won the T-shirt.
He was on what's that annoying guy, Chris, on LBC?
Which one?
I mean, there's so many. You're not talking about
him who interviewed Kate Garraway.
Oh, it's not Nick Ferrari.
No, not Nick. I'm too fat to get in a Ferrari.
Oh, do you know what really annoyed me about Nick Ferrari, of whom I've had plenty of media arguments with, but people like Nick Ferrari and Sheila Fogarty, like obscenely and grossly overweight people, and I never body shame, but I'm not having them sodding telling me about public health. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that was what they did. These people who were very unwell telling us about the importance of public health. F off. Right. Yeah. Absolute liberty of these people. Now, I'm not sure who you're referring to.
James O'Brien, I'm talking about.
O'Brien.
Yeah. Now, the irony is with O'Brien, and I don't know if this is some kind of thing that is part of some controlling element of it, but he's actually speaking out heavily about Gaza, which is a phenomenon. So I have to commend him on that if it's real. Yeah. But anyway, that's another side story.
I would guess it's some kind of psychological operation.
Well, I can't say I really trust the guy. But anyway, Jolly.
Remember what I said, I learned very quickly, and producers used to tell me, they used to say to me, we need a Sonia, you need a James O'Brien on an LBC, right? Because it gives the illusion of balance, of impartiality, but it doesn't mean that it's real when you look at the overriding message that takes place. But also in terms of Gaza, they know that stuff is coming on top now. It's like, it's over. It's over. When you have the mayor of New York come out, which he did, I think, yesterday, a video online where he's saying about Netanyahu is a war criminal and they will arrest him. That I mean, I don't know about Mamdani, whether he can be trusted or not, but I would like to hear those sort of statements, those sort of sentiments.
I think, though, that even if he's real or not, the Plimsoll line of truth always it rises, and they've got to go with it because they've got to control the narrative, as you say, like they are doing with the MK Ultra hearings that they're having at the moment. That they're accepting now that actually went on, but they're controlling the narrative, like they do with the COVID report and all this other stuff. They're controlling the narrative, the story. You've got to revert back to.
But there's also another point: is he coming out and denouncing Netanyahu because it's done now, isn't it? They flattened it, so. They can throw someone under the bus, can't they? Or take someone out. And
that is an important point as well. It's after the event, isn't it? Which again kind of takes me back to what I said about Andrew Bridgen it's like, and I do accept that Andrew Bridgen has talked out about a lot of things and actually did a lot before then, because I have files going back 10, 15 years where Andrew Bridgen was actually calling out politicians to do with child abuse and saying that there were issues. So I know that he's kind of off. There are sometimes David Davis in Parliament is somebody who's spoken out for a very long time about all manner of issues. So there are sometimes, I've forgotten what
I always got the impression Andrew Bridgen rose his head above because they were going after kids because he had a kid. So, I mean, the people are allowed to change their mind out there. They're allowed to, even though we're going for lockdowns.
Exactly.
You know, like Dom says, you know, when people do put their head above the parapet, everyone attacks them. But, you know, I mean, I don't know.
People call for famous people to put their head up or people in power. And when they do, then they say they're a shill or working for the other side. So you've got to take what you can, really. But just talking about Dom Jolly, we're funny. He actually made a video about us.
No.
He did, yeah. I've actually got it somewhere. I don't know if it's right to play it on here, but I'll show it you when we finish. Anyway, he was doing a tour. He wrote a book called The Conspiracy. What were it called?
Tourist or something. Yeah.
Tourist.
Basically, Sonia, he did a tour, and I noticed he was
a hit job.
Different shows talking about conspiracies, saying how ridiculous they were. So then I was telling Dom, and he looked into his background.
Yeah, and I found out that
it seemed like an operation. Sorry for that.
Yeah, it seemed like an operation. His family is Lebanese. He's from Beirut, and so they own a huge shipping and banking business, and have done for 150 years. Dom Jolly.
Wow.
So his family were diplomats. They were knighted and MBEs and things like that. One of his great grandfather was arrested in Turkey during World War I with his great-grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, his great-grandfather, his grandfather, his great, anyway, whatever it was. Two of his grandfathers were arrested in Turkey and locked up for the duration of World War I. They were diplomats, so I'd hazard a guess they were also possibly intelligence operatives, which I'd never found that out definitely. Also, during World War II, his mother's side, his grandfather on his mother's side, ran spy schools. Behind the lines spy schools.
What?
And this isn't.
This is an education I'm getting this morning. Good God!
So not only that, but he had an influential bloodline to back it up, going back into the sort of Middle Ages and what have you as well.
And so he admits that he went to college with Osama bin Laden.
He was at college with Osama bin Laden.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, he's admitted that on TV as well.
They tell us all this stuff in plain sight, right? It's not like a lot of the time that they even hide it, right? But it takes people like you and me to put it all together, to make some sense of it, to show what's going on.
All you do is put it all together. It's not that difficult then to make sense of it. You're not sensationalizing it. You're not trying to throw somebody to the bus. That is their truth.
It kind of annoyed us because he was doing the rounds on certain shows, and he was on with O'Brien, like ridiculing, any conspiracy, basically. Right. And he honed in on one, right? And he said, there's loads of people out there. So it kind of got our back up a little bit, just in a jovial way. But he said, there's lots of people out there who think Finland's not real. And I mean, I look into a lot of weird stuff. I've never heard that before, that people think Finland's not real. No. So he was focusing on ridiculous ones. And I noticed there were a few people doing this at the time, and it was in the 2020s. And they were saying, they always ended with the same line as well. I used to find, and he did as well, I used to find conspiracies a bit funny and quirky, but now they're getting dangerous, aren't they?
Right, that's the new thing.
That was the click of Dom looking into his background.
Which is what Mariana Spring's done, hasn't she? She said, I get trolled all the time, the horrible, evil trolls, but she never actually tells you what anybody said to her.
And wrote a book off the back of it. And I did a gatekeeper series, and she was one of my gatekeepers. And actually, when you look in her history, it's very interesting if you have. And selected to present flowers to the Queen, a Wimbledon ball girl. And these are kind of very interesting selected. It's very weird. And also she did the whole route again, Oxbridge, went to Russia, did some writing for a Russian newspaper there, came back, and we were fed this ridiculous story that apparently, I think it was Emily Maitlis, had received a call from a friend at The Guardian recommending Mariana Spring, and out of nowhere she suddenly got this job. Well, that's not how it works in journalism.
You know how that works. It doesn't work like that.
That doesn't work like that. And she is absolutely a gatekeeper without a shadow of a doubt. But going back to your point there, Chris, is what was interesting, and I would argue it's actually against her remit at the BBC, is she generated this whole idea of how she was hounded by trolls and then wrote and sold a book on it. So she essentially created the content of her book. Now that I think is contrary to the to BBC rules, because she profited from it and she's supposed to be impartial, but actually she generated this anger, and she generated anger because she targeted people and their livelihood. Dom, I know you guys are a big fan of Richard D. Hall. He was targeted. There is no getting away from it. And we saw how he was targeted, not just from her rocking up at his stall, taking out his livelihood, but also that court case would not have happened, in my opinion, without the BBC targeting him.
No, wouldn't have existed, would it?
He couldn't have stood a chance in that court case because that's an official narrative. It's already solidified.
Yes.
So, you know, so those sort of things I hate, absolutely hate. So yeah, Mariana Spring is a perfect example. And also with very little experience. And did you notice the thing that they did as well? They used a quite young female because then they use this whole idea of don't criticize her, she's young. Listen, she's targeting people. Given a job like that, I'm criticizing her.
Who crams all that stuff in? She's like 20, 25 something.
Yeah, she's very, very young.
How did she do all that stuff?
Well, and this is where it got very interesting, is when I asked her a question once on Twitter, what was then Twitter, and that was whether she was also fact-checking what was going on for C19. In the early hours of the morning, I get an email from her boss wanting a private conversation with me. I've still got it. I've talked about it on my show.
Wow.
Right. and that going back to your question of how does this work in terms of when you're in mainstream media, which kind of avenue they're going to take you off to next. And I said to him, I'm not having a private conversation with you because that's how you people always do it. Everything is behind the scenes. You rein me in, you get me on side. No, we're doing this publicly. I'm letting my viewers know that you contacted me. I'm showing them. And then the next thing I know, she's blocked me on, she won't. And ridiculous. If you're supposed to
as soon as you've had a private conversation with him, you're now having a private conversation with Mariana Spring's boss, aren't you? So
yes, exactly. So and if I'd have had that private conversation, I'd be part of the fold. I bet you would have found me a job in no time. But I have to live with myself. I have to live with my daughter and my family, and I have to have a decent conscience. And
I just think some of us, Sonia, if you think about World War II, the French resistance, for instance, not all the French were in the resistance. Some of them were on the fringes. Some of them didn't want to be part of it because they were terrified. Some people are that way inclined out. They're just like Boris Johnson's been programmed to be that way inclined, or Tony Blair. You know, we're that way inclined to speak out about tyranny.
Yeah, the school system does that, though, doesn't it? Because it puts people through this sort of farming scenario where everybody is very rigid and has to adhere to rules in a certain way, very regimented. And so it is really hard.
If you get put into Oxbridge and then you've been given the ultimate compliment, I'm now supremely more intelligent than anyone else I know because I've gone through. So if they tell me to do this, I'm going to do it. And then before they know it, they're jabbing kids.
Yeah, exactly that. So let me go on to Tony Blair, because again, I think it's very interesting, this analogy that you've drawn between Boris Johnson and Tony Blair. So Boris Johnson is the actor and Tony Blair is the rock star, right? That's how they sold him to it. All that cool Britannia stuff. Right. Remember, he got in 1997. Things can only get better. All that sort of stuff. Right. Oasis. And they and also, I think you also point out in the book that now if you're waving a flag, you're considered a racist. But back then it was all cool, wasn't it?
It was. Tony Blair and Boris Johnson are basically identical in the way, like the Truman Show. There's early videos of Tony Blair. Like there is of Boris Johnson. I know people will have cine camera videos. I'm on about being interviewed on mainstream TV. Like I think in 1983 or 2, I found an early video of Tony Blair where he was being put into an easy seat to win. Which again, you find a lot of this as well. That Rishi Sunak was given this seat that was always going to be Tory. It's been Tory for whatever, a million years. And likewise with Tony Blair, he was given a seat that somebody stood down in. Yeah, Boris Johnson did as well. He got given a seat, basically. And these people are handed the position. They're handed the position.
Yeah, they're parachuted in, aren't they? That's
but Tony Blair is definitely from a family of actors because his grandparents were vaudeville actors. So his father was adopted. His father was adopted. He was given up by his parents to a Glaswegian man and his wife, and obviously he struggled with trauma from that part of it because his adopted mother wouldn't let him contact his real mother. She even destroyed all the letters she'd been sending him while he was away during World War II. So this was his grandfather. So he carried a lot of trauma around with him. And when Tony Blair was put into Chorister School, I better pronounce that right because I get told off for my Yorkshire accent pronouncing stuff wrong. In Durham, his father had a stroke. His father was a communist, which they then did a double flip and became a Tory. Right? Ran for office, parliamentary office as a Tory, but had a stroke while he was running. And Tony Blair's mother, in her kind nature, sent him to boarding school, and he was comforted by I think it was a Canon Grove, and he was an abuser. And there's a headline in the book from the newspaper. When Tony Blair was voted in 1997, a Times headline, Tony Blair's mentor was an abuser. This was at his second school. He was surrounded by these people.
Is that Fettes College, I think, as
Fettes
well?
College, yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Fettes College, he was surrounded by these people all the way through school. And Piers Cross told us there was a story that he told on a Des O'Connor's show when he was just voted in, that he ran away from school at 12-year-old. And the story was that he tried getting on a flight to Barbados or somewhere like that, or something strange anyway, and with no passport.
Wow.
And so
it gives me a different feeling. I start to feel compassion towards him. I don't want to feel compassion towards Tony Blair. Don't do this to me.
No, I don't either. But you have to go with where the information takes you. And
I know.
But also, like you always said, Dom,
you
feel sorry for the kid, but the adult who then goes off to kill 1 million Iraqis, you can't really sympathise with them, can you?
No, you're right. No, exactly.
But the people he was surrounded with, I mean, there was a guy called Samuel Cunningham, Knox Cunningham, who is a baron in Ireland. His family owned a huge tobacco company. They were all MPs and things like that. They're all part of the Orange movement in Northern Ireland.
Linked to King Cora, which
all linked to King Cora, yes, yeah. And I know you've covered that. Knox Cunningham was an old Fetters boy, and he was president of the old Fetsonians or whatever it was called. And he had free reign to go back, and he had one-to-one meetings with Tony Blair. And some of the pupils said the house master, I forget what he was called, but the housemaster must be naive because he mustn't have known that Knox Cunningham liked little boys. These are the kids telling this story as they're adults, you know.
Extraordinary.
And that housemaster was knighted, by the way.
Oh, and when you start to hear stuff like that, you then understand how Tony Blair could have defended Margaret Hodge over the Islington child abuse scandal and made her children's minister as well following that scandal. And again, Zionist, heavy Zionist. Tony Blair isn't, though. He changed his faith, didn't he? He was Anglican and then became Roman Catholic. Why are you laughing? What did I say?
You didn't say. Well, there's two things there. He's not doesn't follow Judaism, but he is part Jewish.
Right.
Yeah. Also, he's got heavy links to Israel again through the Oracle guy. What's he called?
Larry Ellison.
Larry Ellison, who's funded his NGO hundreds of millions of pounds. Blair's son now is apparently worth 400 million.
Right.
Because of his education platform that he's built, his AI education platform. So they're all intrinsically linked with this. But going back to when he was I don't know the correct term, made into a Catholic, let's just say. The guy that converted him to being a Catholic, I'm going to get his name because I need to get this right. Let me get it. The Archbishop, Cardinal, where is it? Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor.
Yes,
I think you were Irish. He was the Archbishop. He was the Archbishop of Westminster. Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor covered up a large paedophile network while he was the bishop of an area, and he moved the guy that was abusing disabled children to, and he said he forgot about it. He was the guy that received him into the church and converted him to Catholicism. Cardinal Cormac O'Connor.
I would suggest they say whatever religion they want us to believe.
Right, because it suits a purpose. Got you.
So here we go. I'll read this out, and then documents from the original investigation confirm that the bishop, Murphy O'Connor, knew and when, in July 1981, Father Michael Hill was sent to a therapeutic centre following concerns about his sexual behaviour. Cormac describes the matter as very serious in letters. He questions whether Hill should have had have the pastoral care of a parish. It went on to say that after Hill's first trial in the 1990s, the then head of the Catholic Church in England, Cardinal Basil Hume, described the case as very regrettable. So he said he'd forgotten about that when he was questioned about it. It's on headlines here. Cardinal admits he forgot about the abuse case by a priest. So there were several priests around Tony Blair from being a child and as in his adult time, and he's never talked about this. He's never talked about those people, those individuals. I mean, the headline in 1997, just as Blair's getting into power, he'd been voted in on this landslide, this massive tidal wave of public support, supposedly. And the headline in the Times read, Tony Blair's mentor was a sex abuser.
It is extraordinary, really, when you really start to break it down. Of course, they often have these great spiritual guides, don't they? Like Prince Charles did, obviously, with Bishop Ball. And again, another predator, another paedophile. And so I think that's very interesting. Tony Blair, though, he's one of those people, like a lot of them, for example, Boris Johnson, we just see him now as kind of like as a newspaper columnist. David Cameron's bobbing around, but Tony Blair and the Tony Blair Institute, right? He's one of those people that has just never, ever gone away. Do you think that Tony Blair is kind of, I don't know how to articulate this, but almost on a kind of another level to some of these people? Because he always seems more demonic, more satanic, more prepared to do more outrage. I don't know. It's just a theory.
Do you want to answer that, Chris, or don't we say?
Well, I was just thinking, as Sonia was saying that, I think we've talked about this, Tom, because he was adopted and stuff. So he's even his lineage is a bit dodgy, isn't it? So was he brought in as? Was he brought in as like a bloodline?
Have you ever talked to Fiona Barnett?
No.
Fascinating. Do you know who Fiona Barnett is?
No.
Right, Fiona Barnett.
Sorry, Fiona.
Yeah, honestly, I think you get on like a house on fire with her. Australian woman who was adopted into those bloodline. I've interviewed her. Fiona's fascinating character.
I might have heard her, Sonia.
But what's interesting, again, it's that adoption thing. I wonder how many of these adopted children.
Michael Gove was adopted.
Yes, exactly. He was. You're absolutely right. And I do wonder whether that, in the same way as they treated care homes as some sort of abuse pipeline for a lot of these people, I wonder if it's been operating on a similar situation with adopted children.
Maybe.
Cut them off their ties, where they come from, their actual bloodline, put them into a whole nother world. Again, or just theorizing.
I've often described it as, like if you have a king and he's got all his peasants around him and he has a kid with a peasant wench, if you like, but then keeps an eye on the kid and makes sure he's all right, or elevates him to a certain area,
Good
but
point.
the kid didn't even know, maybe.
A couple of things, right? What I find ironic, that Blair, Bush, Saddam Hussein, all of them have royal genealogies. Saddam Hussein back to Mohammed. Bush has a royal genealogy back through the St. Clair family and a few others. In Scotland, the Rosalind Chapel, all the way through. Blair has. All of these people fought, historically, the Crusades against each other. And so the same bloodline was fighting the Crusades in the Gulf War, yeah? That's one thing. I managed to map, and it was the first time I'd ever done this, Tony Blair, possibly, and I always use the word possibly because I'm not saying my research is the one. Yeah, it's very dark, that one, isn't it?
It is dark, and it reminds
and it suits him.
I can't. It almost has that. What was that Pinhead character? You know the one I mean.
Hellraiser. Yeah.
Right. It kind of reminds me of that, but it is dark. That is a dark image, isn't it?
He only sharpened his teeth in his ears a little bit, and
yeah,
he's got no spilt milk and dribble.
No.
Oh, yeah, didn't dribble him. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think he needs dribble on that Krista scale.
No, no.
He's a different kind of evil. But yeah. I think I traced his genealogy back, whether it's real, to Adam and Eve.
Mad.
And some ancient pharaohs as well. So in answer to your question, why do I think that he keeps popping up? And is he the bloodline of a higher echelon?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm asking, really.
Yeah. And can I prove that? Not really. I've got some decent proof here. Some maybe professional genealogists might argue with me or even prove that it's right. Who knows? But yeah, I think he goes back all the way somewhere, and that's why he keeps popping back up. And there's a famous guy called Tim Murphy. Oh, I forget his surname now. He said there's definitely a bloodline, and there are bloodlines within a bloodline.
And it's interesting that the last chapter in your book is actually about Blair's bloodline of the Holy Grail, right? You want to say something about that?
Well, yeah, that's the one, really. I mean, they have mapped an ancient pharaoh back to Scotland, but if Blair's bloodline follows where I think it follows that bloodline to, and it also links up to the Bush bloodline. Now, ironically, I can trace Bush's bloodlines back to like Nordic mythology and things like that, and supposed ancient giants and stuff. That it follows that path to Viking kings, if you like. But it also, ironically, and again, this is the sort of thing you come up with these you call them coincidences, but one of his great grandfathers, this is the Bush family, whether it's George or HW. He was related to a guy called Rollo Ragvalston. Anyway, it's a Viking. Rollo, we'll call him. He was the first Duke of Normandy, and his nickname was the Walker.
No.
Yes. Look it up. And do you know when year he was given his dukedom?
No.
9/11.
No. See, these things cannot be a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence anyway. Coincidences are for people who haven't got to our level. This is nuts. It's absolutely insane when you start to break it down like that. Yeah,
that is. I mean, bear in mind when you're researching this stuff and you come across it, the hairs stand on the back of your arms and stuff like that.
I love those moments, though. Yeah. As a researcher, those are the exciting moments because then you realise that your gut instinct was leading you in the right direction. It was there for a reason. So before we end, I want to, first of all, we have to just show this imagery. To me, this is a rogues gallery of the COVID. I mean, you can see Jacinda Ardern, you can see who was then Prince Charles. I mean, this is a rogues gallery. Klaus Schwab, absolutely brilliant work, Chris. Do not underestimate your work. No, I think your work is fabulous. I keep really telling them that. Yeah, and I'm a straight shooter. If I don't like something, you'll either know it or I just won't comment on it, right, to save you. But if I'm effusive like that, you have to know I genuinely like it because that's how I love
drawing. I love drawing. One good thing about our Sheep Farm podcast is it got me drawing again.
Wonderful.
I need a reason to draw, and it gave me a reason to.
Wonderful. I take it you come from I don't want to make any assumptions, but I take it you come from a working class background. Right?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Reason I say that is all of my siblings are all very talented as well. My sister was an artist. My brother Jesse could make anything. Two died during COVID. My brother Bern, a musician and a songwriter, and I'm obviously a journalist. But a lot of that was not only home because we have talented parents, but also through poverty is we had to do things. We had to make our own entertainment at home as well. And I often say that we talk about very wealthy people and children going to boarding school and everything as being privileged. And I think it's often the other way around. I consider my background, even though it was really what would be considered really dysfunctional as hell, but for the most part, I consider it really privileged because we were a family unit. We were together. We fought together. And I think that's often something that binds working class families, that doesn't necessarily bind a lot of middle class families who kick their children out of the nest early and send them off to these schools. So I want to come around to the current then. So Andy Burnham, I'm just looking at his cabinet, by the way. Let me just do a quick check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 members of Andy Burnham's new cabinet are all Labour friends of Israel. That's surely not a coincidence, right? What are your thoughts about the coronation of Andy Burnham? Because it feels like that. It's not democratic, obviously. He's been been selected, not elected. How does he fit into it? Will he be part of your next book?
Well, the actual next book it's not necessarily written, but it's going to be traitors.
Trust the science.
Traitors that trust the science, yeah. And the media people, which maybe you can help me on some of that, because we did a lot of podcasts. So maybe I'm not even interested in politics.
I know that's the funny thing. You're interested in the characters, aren't you?
But I'm more interested in history, really.
Right.
I like the Yoko Ono research or Huxley's. We did a 10-part series on Huxley, and George Orwell did all his bloodlines and who he was related to and his links to intelligence and so anyway, going back to these guys, it's just the same thing. It's the same idiot again who's in power. They're just craving power and they've got no interest in anybody apart from working for the people who just mentioned, the Friends of Israel. Why do we need Friends of Israel? Why not Friends of, I don't know, Croatia or somewhere? Why do we need to be friends with Israel?
Yeah, I don't think we should be friends with anybody in that kind of, because it's infiltration. And it's lobbyists, isn't it? So it's infiltration, and none of these lobbyists give money for the good of their health. They give it to have influence in our system. That's what
also, as me and Chris were saying the other day, it looks like that idiot from Australia, Dan Andrews.
Oh,
yeah, someone was in his comments as well. Yeah,
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I was as well. I was thinking the same thing as well.
Yeah.
Interesting point. Right, guys, we are about wrapping up here, but I want both of you to have a kind of a final word to give to our viewers. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I knew I would. And what I've really enjoyed about it is it's flowed so beautifully. It's like we haven't struggled to move from one subject to another. It's naturally gone there, which is again, very authentic, very organic, pretty much what I like, because it hits you in your solar plexus. You know when something isn't scripted, when it's real, and it just feels right. So very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And last words to you.
You going, Chris?
One thing I was thinking when we were talking about Blair is it's going to be not interesting, maybe horrible, what his son's going to do next. He's been lined up, isn't it? I mean, is that the first time in a long time where they've lined up a child in the same system.
Wow.
And like Don was saying, he's already got a multi-million-pound business.
That's Ewan, is it? That's Ewan Blair, I think, is it? Yes.
That's generational, isn't it? Which is what they do, isn't it? It's generational.
Imagine saying Tony Blair's my dad.
Oh, imagine.
But also,
I don't think you were produced organically, though.
Thanks for having us on and also altering how you normally do this, because you don't normally record, do you?
Well, no, see, this is the thing, right? And again, I think this is very interesting, fits in with the whole Barbo basket thing, is I first of all don't like pre-recording because I like the buzz and the hype that comes along with being live. I think that works very nicely, but obviously in order for us to be able to come together, but not just that, I'm also completely different. So you have to know you're special, because I've literally parked my Friday investigation show for this. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Sonia.
Thank you,
no
Sonia.
problems at all. So obviously, everybody, you can hear that it's pre-recorded, but the time you watch this, it is Chris's birthday.
Yeah.
So happy birthday to you,
Thank
Chris.
you. Yeah.
Entering Leo season, fiery, wonderful stuff.
I'm on the first day, Leo, actually. Yeah.
Is it? Wonderful.
Yeah, 24th is the first day, yeah.
Right, that crossover. So, but no, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'm glad that we decided to do it like this as well, because I think that the book is actually, it's an important book. I think that there are some books that come along and you just know they're going to have some sort of historical significance, some importance. And I actually think Traitors is going to be one of them.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
And I didn't write it to sell thousands or anything like that. I wrote it as a history book.
Right.
That's what I wrote it for, a book that you can go back and say, so it didn't happen quite like we were told.
Not like the COVID report.
Exactly, exactly that. And that's exactly why I will do a revisit of a Dr. David Kelly, because the new generation coming through, I don't want them to forget these people. Yeah. He was a hero. That man died a hero as far as I'm concerned. So exactly that same thing. And sometimes we just have to do that, and that's fine. And I think it's all being done in the right heart. So everybody, obviously, this is Dom and Chris from the Sheep Farm. I will put a link in the description below. So if you are not familiar with them, and why ever not, you will be after this, obviously. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me. Thank you so much. Pleasure. I wish you a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you very much, Sonia.
Sheep Farm.
Thank you.
And your listeners.